Hello students. This is the third part of human capital formation in India. Now in this, like earlier we have studied about like what is human capital formation and what is human capital and source of human capital formation and all. And this part we will study about, like we will find out like how the education sector is placed in Indian economy. That is, we will be applying this, or we will be studying about the education and health sector in the Indian economy. First of all, in India, like you might have studied, like India is having a federal government. We don't have one single government. We have three levels of government. Government at the central level, that is central government. Government at the state levels, which is state government, and also local governments. Your Gram Panchayat, Zilla Panchayats, all they form and come under local governments. Now, education and health, both are very important source of human capital formation. We have already understood it. Among the 5 sources of capital formation, we give a higher priority to education and health. Coming to that point, education and health provides both private as well as social benefits. If I get educated or you people get educated, you would come across private benefits, benefits which are basically for yourself and for myself. In the way, like when I get education or knowledge, that knowledge can be used for my own self benefit. And also, if the same knowledge is used for the benefits of the society, even the social benefits will appear. So, education and health provide both private benefits as well as social benefits. That is the much importance which we are giving for these two. Since both private and social benefits are there, investment on education cannot be monopolized. In the sense, if you allow anybody to start investing in education and health benefits, private sectors, they start developing their own institutions, developing their own hospitals, which might get monopolized, wherein each and every person in the society might not get the benefits. For example, see, if you want to get a good medical facilities, a good hospitals, you'll have to come across them only in the city areas. In the rural areas, we don't have a good medical infrastructure, because in the urban areas, there are a number of private hospitals which are being run with sophisticated equipments, with good health benefits, health facilities. So naturally, if we do not check upon those private health facilities or even educational institutions, they might get monopolized and they will be catering to the needs of only a part of the society, Here comes the importance of the investment by the government sector. When you say that education and health has to be given to each and every individual of a society, there is a role for the government to play here. The government should see to that the health and education is given to all the individuals without at a higher cost. Or they have to be provided free education, free health benefits. That is what we see now. Like every day, you might find that free education for the students are being provided in the government schools. Government hospitals will be providing free health facilities. In that manner, as social benefits are more from these two sectors, the government concentrates on the provision of education, invest a large amount of those two, and also the government regulates the private players. In the sense, those private education institutions, those private healthcare facilities, they are being regularized, or the government will be controlling them. They will be streamlining what kind of facilities that has to be given at what rate, so that the same facility will be provided to all the sections of the society. Now, let us see the machinery under which both education and health facilities are being provided. At the national level or the state level, at the national level, that is central government level or the state government level, we have Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health. For example, if we take the case of Karnataka government, we have higher education department and primary education departments. Departments of Education and Health. These are in turn administered by Ministry of Education. We have ministry, we have ministry. These two ministries, they streamline the administration from the top to bottom, say from the government level to the school level, how the schools have to be run, how the knowledge has to be given, how the education has to be improved, everything is taken care by the Ministry of Education. Now, as I said, departments of education. Primary education department, we have higher department. Even in the, as well as the department, in the central level, we have human resource development. And then, at the local level also, at the local government level also, we have certain schools which are being run by the local governments. If you take the case of Bangalore, we have certain colleges run by the BBMP itself. So they undertake the functioning of those schools and colleges. And then there are certain institutions which are specifically given the functioning to look after the development of education and health. For example, the first is National Council of Education, Research and Training, NCERT. Students will be getting these abbreviations for 1 mark questions. National Council of Education, Research and Training, NCERT. That is, this, as the name suggests, it is a council of education. What is its function? It is the function based on research. It does research on education and it gives training to the teachers at the any level, like national level or state level also. So this institution basically functioning as a research and training institute. It conducts a number of researches, like how can we improve the education? How can we improve the school level education or higher education level, everything. And also provides training to the teachers and the lecturers, professors, etc. Then we have University Grants Commission, UGC. This is at the higher level of education. NCERT, it looks after the primary education. UGC is about higher education. All degree colleges, PG colleges, they all come under University Grants Commission. The name suggests it's about giving grants, not only giving funds. This frames the syllabus, this frames the education policies, it conducts research also, studies also, how to improve the education, how to improve the facilities being provided to the educational infrastructure. Then we have All India Council of Technical Education. The name technical education suggests all engineering colleges, diploma colleges, these come under the All India Council of Technical Education. Now this institution completely concentrates on improvising the technical education in terms of engineering or diploma. These are the four institutions which are involved in the educational improvement sector. And then we have Indian Council for Medical Education, ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Education. This is an institution which concentrates on medical education. All those colleges giving education in the field of medicine, that is regulated by medical education. Now, in the case of medical area, what are the improvements that has to be brought out? What is the condition of the medical education? All those things are researched and implemented by this institution. Fine. Now, how do you measure? Like, in what way you can measure the educational aspects? In a sense, if you want to know, like, what is the investment on education and what is the result of it? Whenever we invest, we try to find out the benefits which we get from it. Only when we get the benefits, which is more than the investment, we try to make some investment in that particular areas. In the same way, here we have a huge amount of investment being made by the government on the provision of education and the health benefits. If we concentrate on education, how do we measure the benefits of education by investing? We have three indicators which shows whether there is improvement in the educational aspect or not. The first is primary education completion rate. Now, at the level of primary education, how many students are getting education or knowledge? How many students are going through the schools? How many complete their primary education? All these things comes under primary education completion rate. If this rate is higher, if you are giving more and more children primary education, that means the educational attainment is improving. It shows the positive rate is being shown that primary education is improving. So obviously your educational attainment index will also increase. Second is youth literacy rate. Youth in the sense after your 8th class, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and even your degree levels, that is youth literacy. Say, what is the amount of youth literacy? Whether it is improving or not. If the youth literacy rate is increasing, if it is at a higher trajectory, then we say that educational attainment is increasing. If the youth literacy is less, then again we say that educational attainment is less. And the last is adult literacy. We all know India is India was a backward country. It's developing, and India's literacy rate was very less. When we look into the Indian history, that is economic history, rate of literacy in India was very low. And as India started to understand the importance of education, when they started giving importance to the primary and higher education, there was a gap. What about the adults, the grown-ups? What about their education levels? Even they have to be provided education. They have to be educated. I remember Doordarshan, our national TV channel. We used to have propaganda by the government regarding giving importance to adult education. Those in the age group of say above 40 or 50, even they have to be brought to the schools. They have to be given education. So the government used to provide them education in the various villages itself through a separate institution, separate department itself, adult literacy education. Even when the adults, their education level increases, you say that educational attainment index improves. Otherwise, your educational attainment index will be at a lower level. These are the three indicators of educational attainment. And the next is growth in government expenditure on education. Growth in government expenditure on education. As we already understood, we need investment on education and health sector at a higher rate in order to improve our human capital, which will directly benefit the economic growth. So, understand what was the kind of expenditure that the government was spending on education. If we want to measure the government expenditure on education, we look into in terms of two different aspects, that is percentage of total government expenditure. What is the total government expenditure on the entire country? If you look into the budget of the country, we have both revenue as well as expenditure. Among the entire amount of money spent in the country on the developmental aspects, what percentage of money is being spent on the education? What is the amount of money? What is the percentage of it that is being spent on education? Second is percentage of GDP, that is the gross domestic product. We always measure the national income in terms of gross domestic product, and also we take it as an indicator, we take it as a measurement scale. Based upon that, what is the percentage of GDP which we earn is being spent on the education aspect? We have some studies like from 1952 onwards till 2014, 1952 to 2014, 7.92% to 15.7%. That is, the total government expenditure, I have written it as TGE in short, total government expenditure has increased from 7.92% in 1952 to 15.7% in 2014. It's just doubled. In how many years? 1952 to 2014. And then, in terms of GDP, gross domestic product, the percentage was 0.64% to 4.13%. Now the question arises, is this sufficient for the education sector? Is it sufficient to improvise the human capital by providing such amount of funds to the education sector? For that also a large number of studies has happened. Many of them have given recommendations. How much should be the expenditure of government on the education sector and all? We can quote about two committees. The first is Educational Commission, which was appointed in 1964-66. It says at least 6% of the country's GDP has to be used for the education purpose. Whatever the gross domestic product that India earns, out of that 6% has to be spent on education. And also Tapas Majumdar Committee. This is again a committee which was framed for bringing out reforms in education in 1988. Now, as per their recommendation, among all the recommendations they have given, one what we can highlight here is, even this committee says that 6% at least of GDP has to be spent on education. So there is a consensus here, like at least 6% of your GDP or the expenditure, government expenditure has to be on the education sector if we can or if we want to develop the human capital in India. The government has been taking necessary steps. The government is taking necessary steps to see to that 6% of the GDP spent on education. And we have one of those, like the government is levying educational cess. Cess is nothing but a kind of tax, additional tax, which the government is levying on the people, 2% of all the union taxes. Whatever the union government gets as tax, in the 2% is being levied as educational cess. And this is being used for primary education. I already told you, like, there is two levels of education, primary education, higher education. So this 2% of educational cess is being spent on primary education. And if you look into the entire aspect of educational expenditure of the country, major part of the expenditure is being done on elementary education. A large proportion of your government expenditure is spent on elementary education, that is your school level education. Higher education gets lesser amount of funds. So what is such being importance given to elementary education? The primary education which is being provided, that acts as a foundation. That acts as a foundation for the entire society as well as for the government. Now, if the foundation is good, if the elementary education is good, naturally the higher education will be good, and the benefits of both this primary and higher education will be derived in terms of higher productivity, higher production, larger income, as well as good economic growth. Well, students, we have been learning about the education and health, the health sector and all, but here, even though the government is giving importance to primary education, higher education, the government is specific on, like, it has a good intention of encouraging education to the women. We always stress upon, when you take into consideration health as well as education, we stress upon more importance towards child and women. We have different departments itself, child and women health department, Department of Child and Women Welfare. Now, what is the such kind of importance being given to women education? See, women education, especially in the case of countries like India, which is developing, which has a very huge amount of cultural background. The first importance is providing women economic independence. If we look into the employment data from the beginning of independence, major proportion of employment was being carried out by men itself. And the women education, when it is provided, when it is highly stressed upon, women will get economic independence. Usually, in a family, when the male is working, the women have to depend upon the male head of the family for any requirements of money. But today, the case is different. Women are seen as equal to men in all the areas. In such case, they should also have independence in different activities. And when we stress on that, we need to stress on economic independence also. And that economic independence can be given to women when they have education, when they have good education. So when they are educated, they can stand on their own feet, that is, they can have their own jobs, they can work, earn their own income, and they can have sufficient independence in terms of the money aspects. And this is happening now. Most of you would have seen, would have experienced this. And then second one, saving women from exploitation and domestic violence. Children, you all are familiar with exploitation and domestic violence. Even the family, at the level of family also, we can have a knowledge about what is domestic violence, how women are ill-treated in the family itself by the male-dominated society, and how they are exploited also. Why is this kind of situation arises? This arises only when the women do not know their rights and duties. The rights which is given by the government, the facilities which they get from the government. If they have a knowledge about what are the facilities that they get from the government, what is the law, what is the rules that there is there in the law regarding their benefits, then they can come out of this exploitation and domestic violence. So, naturally, when women are given education, when they are educated, they will understand what are the rights they get, what are the facilities they get, and how they can use it for their own betterment. And when they know that, when they have that knowledge, obviously their exploitation and domestic violence can be avoided. So what we do is get them educated, give them economic independence, and also see to that they are not exploited and the domestic violence does not happen. Today, we used to have police stations, and each and every area or major areas, they have a separate women police station. That is where this domestic violence is being avoided. Through that is a means. Now, when they get educated, when they have such kind of facilities being provided by the government, when they have the rules or legal aspects which they know, they can get avoided, they can see to that they are not exploited, they don't go to the domestic violence. Third one, to raise their social status, to raise their social status. In the society, men and women have their own status. But the thing is, in India, in the earlier days, the status of women was less in the society when compared to men. Status of the women was less compared to men. Why? Because they were not educated, they were not doing any kind of jobs outside their home, But today, you all would have seen many higher officials. Say, for example, we were ruled by women PM, we were ruled by women CMs. Even today, we have CMs who are women. There are women in the district administration level also. We have district commissioners who are women. Now, when they get highly educated and when they occupy such higher positions, obviously the status of them in the society will improve. When you find a woman who is in the topmost level of the official level, obviously they get a good respect, they get a good honor in the society. Now that happens when they are provided with a good education. The next is to improve their quality of life. To improve their quality of life. We have seen movies, even today, the serials which shows women in the daily life activities. Their quality of life is still being shown at a lower level. The kind of food they get, the kind of facilities they get, they are not sufficient. They are not equal to what the men get. When they have education, when they have economic independence, when they have a good social status, obviously the kind of life they lead will improve. When the kind of life they lead improves, when they are accessible to good amount of goods and services, their life quality improves, and they'll also lead a good life with comfortable and luxurious commodities being consumed. Then, fifth one, to promote family welfare program and control population. To promote family welfare program and control population. Well, we all know that, again, I repeat, India is a highly populated country. There is a very much need for us to control the population, and there are problems which are associated with the population. If all such problems have to be solved, we have to control the population. So how do we control the population? This is the best idea, education. Educating the people will help us to control the population. Even in that also, when we educate women, that will have a major effect on control of population. Who are the planners in the household sector? In your family, even though your male counterparts, they do jobs and earn money, certain plannings are being done by the women in the family. When they get educated, when they know what is the defects or what is the disadvantages of having a larger family, when they understood that difficulties of having larger family, when they know that how difficulty it is to bring up the children with good facilities for them, this population control happens at the family level itself, in the lower strata itself. So, education being provided to women will help us in promoting family welfare programs, how to improve the welfare of the family. And also, the basic thing is, if you want to improve the family welfare or the welfare of the family, you have to reduce the number of children. And that is where your controlling population will also arise. So, when you give a good education to the women, your family welfare program and control population control programs will all be successful. And the last is, educating a woman is educating a family. We all know, like we say that Mane Madala Patashale. That is, the first kind of school education starts at the family level itself. Who teaches at the family level? It is mother, women. So when you educate the women, the mother who is educated will be able to educate the entire family. That will have a good effect. That will form a good foundation from where the education of each and every children will have a major successful story. So if the mother is educated, the whole family gets educated in one or the other ways. Now this is about the entire importance of women education. Fine. We have studied about what is the importance of education, what is the importance of health. In today's circumstances, with all those facilities being given by the government, with all those legal actions taken by the government, rules framed by the government to provide education to all, do we find that education is being reached to each and every section of the society? That is the question now. If we look into their data, statistics, everything, we find that whatever the objectives of the government to provide education to all, that is still not met. That is, the dream of providing education to each and every society member is still not achieved. It has still remained as a dream. So, if you want to summarize the whole chapter, as it is the last part, we have studied in this chapter what is human capital, the meaning of human capital formation, the source of human capital formation, that is investment on education, investment on health, migration, information, and on-the-job training. Among these five, education and health is two very main important sources of the human capital formation. And after that, we learnt about the education and health in detail, and about importance of women education, as well as what is the government expenditure in the area of education and health, what is the machinery under which the education and health is being provided in the country. So all those things are part of human capital formation. Thank you.